Hey guys, welcome to episode 238 of Stand Up. Joining me today, author, professor, historian, Dr. Ruth Ben Giat, and comedian and writer Judy Gold. I'm your host, Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. Yeah, that music is from the band Maggie Pullet. And Chad Schlosser and his brother are the musicians and writers, and they sent that to me weeks ago, and I've been using it every day, and I appreciate having you guys as part of the community. I love supporting you as you are supporting me. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Going to give you shout-outs in a moment here. But first, I want to tell you about an amazing nonprofit who I'm partnering with this month to help create awareness and help you be confident that when you give money to a charity, you're doing the most good. And that is GiveWell, givewell.org/standup. Have you ever heard of the theory of effective altruism? Effective altruism is about answering one simple question. How can we use our resources to help others the most? GiveWell uses evidence and careful analysis to find the best causes to work on. And effective altruism is about following through. It's about being generous with your time and your money to do the most good you can. And GiveWell.org rests its whole purpose on this ideology. I highly recommend that you look up Peter Singer, watch his TED Talk, and read his book as well. I mean, he's written many books, but The Most Good You Can Do, How Effective Altruism is Changing Ideas About Living Ethically. For over 10 years, GiveWell.org has helped donors find the charities and projects that save and improve lives the most per dollar. Here's how. GiveWell dedicates over 20,000 hours a year researching charitable organizations and handpicks a few of the highest impact-backed charities. And all that research is available for free on their website. And more importantly, GiveWell never takes any fees, so all of your tax-deductible donations are given to the charity you choose. So if you want your donation to have even more impact, act soon, because any of my listeners who become new GiveWell donors will have their first donation matched up to $250 when you go to givewell.org/standup. givewell.org/standup. Select podcast, choose Stand Up with Pete Dominic at checkout, and this matching offer is good only for as long as funds last. You know, it costs about $5 to provide one bed net to prevent malaria. Taking into account things like malaria prevalence and mortality rates, GiveWell estimates that every $3,000 to $5,000 donated will save a life. So let's do this. Help me raise money. Help me invest into this amazing organization. And you can donate to any number of the causes that they recommend, like malaria, like vitamin A supplements, and so many other ideas and great causes that GiveWell recommends that you donate to. That's why I use GiveWell. You should use GiveWell. Go to givewell.org/standup. And this year, support the charities that save and improve lives the most. Only weeks away from Giving Tuesday, International Day of Charitable Giving, the beginning of this holiday season. If you want to be confident your dollars are doing the most good, go to givewell.org/standup, and you'll help people all over the world, and you'll help this show get more attention from other great organizations that I can make you aware of. All right, but happy Wednesday. It's the day before Thanksgiving. Here I am checking in with you, asking you to check in with yourself. How you feeling? How you doing? What's going on? You struggling? You thriving? Somewhere in between? I will tell you, I am struggling. Today was a real struggle. Hardest one in a long time, because I'm dealing with this neighbor making my life far more difficult by saying I have to take down the awning on my shed. And now my daughter is not feeling well and has a cough and a sore throat, and we're, of course, worried she's got COVID really on Thanksgiving week. So between those two things and arguing with my other daughter, who's just being 13, and I'm being a 45-year-old man who's trying desperately to understand what his daughter is doing and saying, and being during an international pandemic and trying to understand all that, and just butting heads, but working on it. But between those three things all in one day, for me, it was just a lot. So I like to be transparent and share a little bit about what's going on with me. going into a couple of days off. I think I'm going to take the next couple of days off. I might still post some stuff here on the podcast, but great to have you joining me. And I always want to be as transparent as I can be with what's going on with me. I don't want you to worry. I'm good. I'm fine. And the reason I am is because so many of you are willing to share with me what's happening in your lives. We normalize it. We stay connected. We don't get alone. And that is what we are doing here with the stand-up community, which I never really imagined would be a part of this podcast, that we'd built a community with it. But we have, and there's almost 800 people that are paying subscribers that are getting access to the Zoom Hangouts, and especially a really cool thing, which is our Discord platform. If you haven't signed up yet, it's so great. So many awesome people in the community, and on Discord now, where all listeners can request an invite with your Patreon subscription, get additional access to that. There's all kinds of chat rooms, people always hanging out. There's voice, video chat. You can just lurk and read other people's messages, whatever it takes to make you feel a little better, a little more connected in such a challenging, weird time that none of us have ever been through and we're unprepared for and are trying to figure it all out together. So join me in there, and I hope to see you and talk to you and connect with you. Thank you very much for your support. All right, there's a lot to discuss in the news today. And let's start with all things COVID, pandemic, coronavirus. I mentioned my daughter's got a few symptoms, and obviously that's deeply concerning. But I saw this article in Time magazine tweeted out by Michael Mina, and he's an epidemiologist, immunologist, and a physician at Harvard. And he tweets, important point on rapid COVID-19 tests. They're the only solution available that people actually want. People do not want social distancing, masks, or lockdowns, but they wish they had rapid tests. The difference should not be overlooked in planning. He says, also, this is not saying not to use all other mitigation measures, mask, distancing, etc. It's a statement about the difference in opinion. The one tool we have that people actually want, and that is maybe the most powerful, is the one tool not being made available. The rapid test. Like I said, my daughter got a test today, and we're not going to know probably till Friday what the results are. A friend of my other daughter's, his grandmother got tested positive, and his family all got a rapid test. So I don't know what the protocols are, but maybe if someone tests positive, then you do get a rapid test, which would make sense. That would be a good policy. But rapid tests should be available for everybody because, as Michael Mina is saying there, that's what everybody wants. Of course, the big question on Americans' minds is it safe to travel for Thanksgiving, for the holidays? Let's go to Dr. Aaron Carroll, whose hit YouTube channel Healthcare Triage answers this in under 30 seconds.
Lots of people have asked me, how can we have Thanksgiving safely this year? How can tons of people travel? And how can we have big meals in our house with everyone gathered together? That's the topic of this week's Healthcare Triage.
Oh, I love the music.
Don't do it. It's not safe. This year it's not. Don't do it.
That's it. That's it. Don't do it. It's not safe, Dr. Carroll says, so don't do it. It's not safe. No shame will be brought upon you if you do, but I think he was pretty succinct there in under 30 seconds. Share that one with your friends on your social media channels or however you share things. The U.S. now seeing the highest death rate of COVID-19 since May and record hospitalizations as well. New York City has checkpoints at key bridges and crossings that are strictly enforcing a travel quarantine. The sheriff's office conducting spot checks when out-of-state buses drop riders off at the curb. Testing tracing teams will be on the ground to direct individuals to testing sites and provide education on quarantine. I mean, what a massive heavy lift this is. Or the governor of Oregon, am I pronouncing it right? Her name is Kate Brown, is urging people to call cops on COVID-19 rule breakers, according to the New York Post. Of course, that's how they would report that. AP News reporting states impose new rules, plead with public to stop spread. State and local officials nationwide imposing new coronavirus restrictions and pleading with the public in an increasing desperate attempt to stop the explosive spread of disease. And then everybody probably saw that map on Twitter, social media, that shows all the planes flying in and out of the United States and all over the United States because Americans, we just don't care enough. We're so divided on this, on taking care of each other and doing what it would take to stop the spread and slow the spread and prevent it, which is why I really, I personally, and I'd love to be wrong, and I'm an optimistic guy, don't see a lot of hope for the next couple of months and what is to come. It's really disheartening and depressing. But I thought this was an interesting article related to COVID from the Wall Street Journal. The headline is, "A homebound nation goes all out with lavish Christmas decorations. Americans have been putting up an abundance of lights, Santas, and even flamingos to create some extra holiday cheer this year." So, I mean, that stands to reason, right? I mean, most of us that have any kind of skills and a couple of tools lying around are doing some little projects or big projects. Maybe you're building a patio or a pool that you had procrastinated on, and you're using the money that you were going to spend on vacation. Or you're just have other projects that you're spending time on that you wouldn't have otherwise. You have hobbies, new interests potentially as well. And I think those are silver linings of how we are forced to be quarantining and sheltering in place and isolating with whatever other words you want to use. So I felt like that was kind of a good headline. The next headline, by the way, and notice you saved Trump for last now. He is just screaming into the wind, whining like a little baby, a little child. He came out for a minute today, and I'll get to him and what's remaining. But there's not a lot remaining other than, obviously, the chaos and the upheaval that he's trying to create for the federal government bureaucracy. And if you are working in the federal government and you're seeing things, you're hearing things, and you'd love to talk to me anonymously, a couple have reached out. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. But before that, I think it's more important to just mention at least that Joe Biden has continued to announce key positions in his administration on Tuesday. And the other headline going along with that is that the stock market, the Dow Industrial Average, broke 30,000 on Tuesday. And that was a huge deal. And most analysts are saying that the vaccines, 3 now, that have over 70 to over 90 efficacy being announced, as well as the winning of Joe Biden of the election matters because that creates certainty and normality, and that is what markets like. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's still trying to take credit for it, but nobody's really giving him much credit at all on almost anything. So Biden has also named some new folks, pushing past the Trump era with these nominees, announcing America is back. President-elect Joe Biden introducing his national security team today, his first substantive offering, writing at the AP, of how he'll shift from Trump-era America First policies to relying on experts from the Democratic establishment to be some of his most important advisors. Here is the president-elect today.
Together, these public servants will restore America globally, its global leadership, and its moral leadership, and will ensure that our service members, diplomats, and intelligence professionals can do their job free of politics. They'll not only repair, they'll also reimagine American foreign policy and national security for the next generation. And they'll tell me what I need to know, not what I want to know, what I need to know. To the American people, this team will make us proud to be Americans. And as more states certify the results of this election, there's progress to wrap up our victory. You know, I'm pleased to have received the ascertainment from GSA to carry out a smooth and peaceful transition of power, so our teams can prepare to meet the challenges at hand, to control the pandemic, to build back better, and to protect the safety and security of the American people. And to the United States Senate, I hope these outstanding nominees received a prompt hearing and that we can work across the aisle in good faith to move forward for the country.
All right, there's Joe Biden, the president-elect, making some comments today about his appointments, which are the first sign that we get of what kinds of policies he's going to promote. What do you think so far on this list of nominees that he has put forward? We also heard from his Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and this clip went really viral, moved a lot of people today. Here he is, trying to reset and restart American values by telling an old story.
My late stepfather, Samuel Pizarro, was one of 900 children in his school in Białystok, Poland, but the only one to survive the Holocaust after 4 years in concentration camps. At the end of the war, he made a break from a death march into the woods in Bavaria. From his hiding place, he heard a deep rumbling sound. It was a tank, but instead of the Iron Cross, he saw painted on its side a 5-pointed white star. He ran to the tank. The hatch opened. An African-American GI looked down at him. He got down on his knees and said the only 3 words that he knew in English that his mother had taught him before the war. God bless America. That's who we are. That's what America represents to the world, however imperfectly.
Yeah, quite a departure from the outrageous arrogance, bluster, and bullshit of Mike Pompeo. That's the future Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, at Joe Biden's press conference today. And it's so rich and interesting to watch now, the criticisms that we knew would come of the likely characters in the Republican Senate, especially like Tom Cotton and Marco Rubio or Lindsey Graham, criticizing the picks for Joe Biden. It's like, really? Your guy, Donald Trump picked people from Fox News who had no experience or credibility in a field, people he just saw on TV. That's who he picked to run the most important departments in the federal government and the most important federal effort potentially of our time fighting COVID. He picked a radiologist he saw on Fox News he didn't know anything about, who's not an expert on epidemiology, and pushed the experts aside. Please save your criticisms, Republican senators. They are so empty. You've got nothing. You're empty barrels. You've disgraced yourselves and nobody cares. Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham. You are horrible, deceitful, traitorous, grotesque men with zero integrity and zero honor. Sorry, I'm not holding back, and I won't be. It's awful what they have done, and no one should take seriously their criticisms. I'm sorry. Tell me I'm wrong. Let me know that I'm being close-minded here. All right, let me just take a quick news dump, and then we'll get to our guests for today, Dr. Ruth Ben Giat and comedian Judy Gold. All right, here's your news dump, folks. Let's start with Axios, Axios.com, and many other outlets, of course, reporting Pennsylvania officials on Tuesday certified the state's presidential election results, making President-elect Joe Biden's win in the key battleground state of Pennsylvania official. Great job to Nick DiFabrizio and everybody in Pennsylvania. Nick was a poll watcher there, and he's going to join me to talk about it. All right, that's awesome news, and I thought this was a really interesting story. CNN reporting Chappelle's show is no longer on Netflix, and Dave Chappelle is happy about it. The comedian on Tuesday opened up in a video post to Instagram about the streaming service's move, which he says came at his request. In the video, Dave Chappelle acknowledged that the contract he signed with Viacom CBS allows for his show to stream without additional payment to him. The creator, star, and executive producer, he takes issue with that approach. Watch that video on Instagram of Dave Chappelle. Cool move. I like it. That's a lot of power. President Obama's Memoir has sold a record 1.7 million copies in the first week. Former President Barack Obama's A Promised Land sold more than 1.7 million copies in North America in its first week, roughly equal to the combined first week sales of memoirs by his 2 immediate predecessors. Wow. Imagine. Just imagine. Well, I'm excited to get 800 subscribers to this podcast. All right. ABC News reporting the lawyers for British socialite charged with procuring teenage girls in the 1990s for financier Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse says their client, Ghislaine Maxwell's, sleep is interrupted every 15 minutes in jail to ensure she is breathing. Well, that seems like cruel and unusual punishment. Who's upset? All right, I thought this is a great story from The Guardian in the UK. Scotland has become the first nation to provide free period products for all. Scotland, has become the first country in the world to provide free and universal access to period products after a 4-year campaign that has fundamentally shifted the public discourse around menstruation. You go, Scotland. A reporter from the USA Today. No, this is from Delaware News Journal, Carl Baker. Computer repairman who claimed he gave Hunter Biden data to Giuliani closes shop as laptop saga gets stranger. I'm not even going to read that story. That's crazy. And finally, from InsideEdition.com, dog-sized lizards are spreading across southern United States, sparking concern about impact to ecosystems. Dog-sized lizards are spreading across various states in the southern part of the U.S. It could have potential impact to ecosystems, scientists warn. Wow, that seems real fun. Lizards, which can grow up to 4 feet, will eat anything, including eggs, birds, strawberries, vegetables, and even sea turtles. If you've seen one of these lizards, I'll send you a reward for any photograph of it. All right, I'm Pete Dominick. That is your News Dump. Send your stories to standuppete@gmail.com for News Dump. You know, I put a lot into this show every day. This is independent media. It is only me that works on it. I was listening to the New York Times podcast the other day, and at the end of it, I think he said he thanked 27 people or something that work on that show. This one is just me, and I can't do it without you and your support. Go to patreon.com right now, patreon.com/Pete Dominick, and sign up for a paid subscription to keep it going. We have 784 subscribers, and thank you to the newest, who I want to thank right now on the show, starting with Ron Siek. Ron just became a $5 subscriber. Thanks, Ron. Sammy Sequias is a $5 subscriber. Hey, Sammy. Christopher Bronger just became a $5 patron or subscriber. Kelly Shinners, $5. Hi, Kelly. Thank you. Jim Nickens, thank you for your $5 subscription. Bradley Isbell with a $25 subscription. Holy shit, Bradley. Welcome to the party. As well as Jeff Horowitz, who signed up for $5. Elizabeth Molina just became a $5 subscriber. So did Paula Tamburo, $5 subscriber. Dee Shanti, welcome, Dee. I met Dee in Charleston, South Carolina. Amazing woman, a $5 subscriber. Scott Conley is a $10 subscriber. Thank you, Scott. Daniel Narowski, who's my dad's orthopedic surgeon and good friend. Hey, Dr. Narowski. He subscribed for $5. Tracy Patton subscribed for $5. Thank you, Tracy. Matt Sheridan is one of my best friends from high school, and he just subscribed to the show for $10. And Matt also sent me a really nice message, by the way. A very nice text. Matt wrote, I'm really enjoying the show. I love Celeste Headley and her book, Do Nothing. The pandemic has really given me a chance to breathe, relax, and de-stress. I'm going to read that book and see if there are logical ways to disconnect from work in a bit going forward. Pete, your high-energy passion, insightful guests, timely political stories, and your continued desire to learn and improve is really smart formula for a show. I enjoy seeing the email come through your daily show release, and I'm excited to make time to listen. I've always been happy for you and wish that I had just a sliver of your outgoing personality. Matt, that is so kind of you, and I'm so excited to have you subscribing to the show. He also says he loves the daily news dumps. Who else? Let's get to Kitty Betham signed up for another subscription. Kitty for a $10 subscriber. Thank you very much, Kitty. I really appreciate your amazing generosity and support. And also thank you to Dennis Garling, who just edited his pledge from $10 to $25. You can always edit your pledge from $5 to $10, $10 and up. And I cannot do the podcast without your support. It's all me. Your money goes to me, and hopefully at some point to a whole team of people. So thank you very much. Spread the word. 784 folks right now in this community, and several thousand more listening every day. So how do we get up to 800 by the end of the month? That's the goal. Nothing would make me happier over the next couple days. Well, that and a negative COVID test for Ava. If if you talk with folks around Thanksgiving, maybe this is a good idea for a topic of conversation. What podcasts you listen to? Yeah, you should listen to my friend Pete Dominic's. I learn from his guests each and every day, and it's always fun. All right, speaking of my guests, let's get to him now, shall we? Dr. Ruth Ben Giad is a professor at NYU. She's a historian. She's an author, and her new book is so good. It's called Strong Men. From Mussolini to the President. She is on Twitter at Ruth Ben Giat. Get this book right now. Here we go. All right, I have got her now. Ruth Ben Giat, welcome back to Stand Up, and congratulations on this really good, very important, sadly extremely relevant book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have been studying authoritarianism and fascism your entire career, and you, I guess, because of that, were one of the first person to see the rise of Donald Trump back in 2015. Can you help me understand what you saw then that a lot of the rest of us, including myself, were saying he's a joke?
So, yeah, I'd been studying fascism and written books about fascist propaganda, and also about how collaboration, how they get people to work with them and what they do if they won't to them. So when I saw Trump on the scene, starting with his rallies and his loyalty oaths, retweeting neo-Nazi memes, and insulting everyone around him, breaking all the rules at the debates, I thought, this is really bad. So I already started writing about him in November 2015, was the first op-ed I did for CNN. I was like, this isn't good.
Yeah. And I'm going to obviously come back to Trump a lot as you write about him in the book, but your book is divided into 3 parts, and all 3 are equally interesting. Part 1, getting to power. 2 is tools of rule, and part 3 is losing power. And I must confess, Ruth, I did skip ahead right to part 3 because I feel like that's where we're at right now with Donald Trump. But I also want to mention that as we begin the conversation here about who you cover and what you cover in the book, and it's both basically the authoritarians of the last century and, sadly, of this century. And we see far too many in this century or in the last 30 years. And so tell me a little bit more about how, as I just mentioned, the book is structured in terms of getting to power, how you write about the past and kind of the present at the same time.
Yeah,
which is brilliant.
I decided because it's really about it had 2 aims. One was it's the first book to put Trump in historical perspective, and so it was part of all of us, and including me, the writer, figuring out where he fits. You know, I've always maintained we can't really look at him through the lens of Democratic presidents, and the playbook he followed was authoritarian. So this playbook has these tools of rule: corruption, virility or hypermasculinity, and violence and propaganda. So I decided to structure the book that each of the chapters on these tools goes over a whole century, so that you could see, you know, what, for example, with personality cults, what stays the same and what has changed. And you could see where Trump fits in, you know, how things he recycles that come from the fascists, and things like the fact he doesn't read at all and he gets all his info from television. That's actually just unique to him.
That is unique to him, you're saying?
Yeah. Because all of them, like a lot of them, had very great expertise with media. Mussolini was a journalist. Mobutu was a journalist. Berlusconi he owned TV networks. He was on TV all the time. But they read books. Trump is the first person to I believe his first wife, Ivana, she said he only had 2 books, which was like Art of the Deal and Hitler's Speeches. But he gets all his information from television, you know, Fox News, like in the past. So he's different than the others. Yeah,
that's for sure. And we can talk about what that difference means. And then we talk about, as you do, the role of media and harnessing the media and even controlling the media in many ways. But I mean, and it's also really important that we talk about history, this being the first kind of book and chapter on history, because he's lost, though you published it before the election. Obviously, it's come out around the election. But I also think I learned so much. It's so fascinating. And I guess I have to ask you a somewhat personal question, which is how did you psychologically live with these authoritarians, and how do you for so long, knowing all of the things they've done and capable of doing, and then seeing in your own country and even around the world with Putin and Orban and Duterte, who you write about, that these men are in power now? That must have been, how do you psychologically deal with all that?
It wasn't an easy book to write. And I was really relieved when I got to the resistance chapter, which was after the violence chapter, which was difficult to write. And I felt conscious of, writing from a position of privilege, in that I grew up in America. My parents are not American, but I grew up in America and didn't have direct experience of, any of these regimes, unlike a lot of people and the first people who started to write me when I did my op-eds and have been writing me about the book are people who fled dictatorships to come to live in the States. And they were horrified when, Trump came along. But you'll see, the reader will see a lot of things about separations of families, about mothers and children. And I also was writing as a parent. And there's a sub-theme of the book about exile. So these guys promise to make the nation great or great again, but then they end up destroying families, and hundreds of thousands of Chileans in the 70s had to leave and go into exile. And so there are a lot of, I felt the pain of these families. And I also had to live in the head of these leaders, which was very unpleasant. It's not a good place to be. So when I got to the last section of the book on resisting and getting rid of them, the endings, it was like cathartic.
I'm sure it was, and we're all better for it. You've written, delving into this and living with it for so long because of the book Strong Men, which has come out of it, which I just can't put down. I highly recommend everybody go get it right now. So let me, though, now ask about the kind of the common thread in the beginning of the book with how these men, and they're always men, we could talk about gender in a moment, but get to power, because it's different for each one. I love that you illustrate that to the reader, how. And it's harder in an interview because it's like, I want to say, pick a common thread, but in reality, Ruth, it's different for each one, how they get to power. But maybe we can talk about some of the circumstances that create an atmosphere for these men to take power, and find any common thread there in terms of concern about multiculturalism or economic issues. Is there any common thread that you would say back then and now is applying to these leaders then and to those now?
There actually are. And part of the work of the book was to try and find these patterns. So that, in a way, it's not, there's many grim things in the book, but history can also be a consolation because people have gone through these things. And we had just a little taste of it with Trump. And then they get out of them. So one of the circumstances that's there around the world when these kind of men appeal, when they're coming up, is it's after periods of, there's been a lot of progress in social relations, either gender emancipation, racial emancipation, workers' rights, or equal pay. And this makes a lot of people angry and anxious. And so these leaders come up kind of saying they're going to block this and even turn the clock back. So you have them as a reaction. And this was in Germany and Italy and Spain. And of course, after 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency, the first African-American president, that many Americans never digested this fact. They found it an affront that he was even president. So up comes Trump, to kind of put this disordered society in its place. And then the other thing is that societies are often very polarized.
Yes.
And people are anxious about change. So originally, with fascism, you had the effects, of catastrophic effects of World War I. So you had, economic crisis, a lot of men who were, came back and disabled. So these men come up as an anchor, and there's a strong gender appeal because they come up at a time when there's worries about male authority. That ties to like the gender emancipation that's been going on.
Yeah.
And so this polarization is also a fruit of that, and they thrive on polarization. So for 100 years, leaders like Trump have needed us to beat each other's throats. And then they make people dependent on them through their personality cults. And it works every time.
I know that you're not meaning to say this, and I've read this in the book, but like what you're saying in terms of polarization and change, and I know that you agree with me, I think personally your opinion would be, but what I see is progress, meaning the right for women to vote, the right for black people to vote, some kind of simple progress moving forward. Scares certain people. I mean, I don't want to make it a binary or water down your work and all, but in terms of all the different details of what you're saying, to me, what I'm hearing is progress. But what you're saying is what they're hearing is terrible outcomes, not progress, the regression in a way. We're moving forward. I don't know how to word it because I'm not them, but what they see is that the changes that are occurring in their society are bad for them. And what many, or I would say most Americans at least, are seeing is, we want women to make progress. We want people of color and immigrants to make progress, gay people to make progress. But they see that, and it's not only in America, it's the same in other parts of the world, unfortunately, and that scares them. How am I doing at trying to muddle through that?
No, it's perfect. But it's a little more complicated in that so Mussolini defined fascism once as a revolution of reaction. And he was a journalist. He was really good at slogans like Trump. And so there is this reaction quality, turning back change, progress. But they pose as modernizers. They come from outside politics often, and they kind of shake everything up. They're like an earthquake. And they often, bring this sense that they're going to make things more efficient. Like Trump was the businessman, right? And Jared Kushner went around saying, we're going to apply business model. We're going to make America, efficient. And all of them have had some sense of it being a movement or a revolution, right? That's why Trump called his a movement, which was very smart. And then he gave people the red hats so they could be an in-group, a tribe. And so people associate them with new and exciting ways of doing politics, but then the content is reactionary. So that's the revolution of reaction. And, 100 years ago, it was fascism. And today, I don't call Trump a fascist because today we don't have a one-party dictatorship. But this is where the patterns come in.
Right.
We can understand where the things that Trump did are coming from, and they're old.
I think I keep quoting you when everybody is calling it fascism. I keep saying what you said about that you don't call it because it's not one party. And to me, that seems like a really good explanation. That being said, the party of fascism would be the Republican Party, moving towards authoritarianism and fascism and moving away from democracy. This movement began long before Trump, I think it's fair to say. How would you describe the Republican Party and their flirtations, which is, I think, an understatement, with authoritarianism and just being anti-democratic, especially right now, Republicans right now not certifying the election results?
It's a tragic thing. And it's really crazy if you consider that leaders who are not exactly liberal Democrats, like Modi of India and Erdogan of Turkey, have called Biden a long time ago to accept the results and congratulate him. Yeah. But the GOP won't. So here, too, we have a historical pattern that when these leaders come up and they're on their ascent, they're not leaders yet, they end up kind of channeling and focusing all the anti-democratic and extremist tendencies that already existed. So the GOP was already moving in an authoritarian direction. It really didn't have much of a commitment to bipartisan governance anymore. And think about the right-wing media universe with the conspiracy theories. And that's where Trump came from, right? Because he hadn't been in politics, but when he was flirting with a run for president in 2012, he started with this birther business. Yeah. So his very origin of being in politics corresponded to this shift, and it was very much a reaction to Obama. And then he legitimized all this extremism. So the Republican Party was able to develop its inner authoritarianism under Trump. And here's what we get now, where very few of them have gone against him, and they're even, trying to steal the election, the biggest stakes of all.
Yeah, and I often think just about the impeachment in terms of what that was about. I mean, Donald Trump called up a foreign president, an ally of ours, and said, listen, if you want basically the military aid that Congress has approved, you need to launch an investigation into a guy who's likely to be my opponent, as well as the former vice president and a senator from the United States. You need to investigate him. And I think the Ukrainian president comes back with something like, investigate what? There's nothing here. And he said, don't even worry about it. Just announce an investigation, which is a lot of what Trump does. He announced an investigation into Obama's birth certificate, never did an investigation, just announced he was having one, because that matters. Those types of announcements matter. But the impeachment that I just described, like when Republicans saw that and said nothing to see here, that to me was also a red flag. And I'm wondering if there's other historical examples of kind of the government, or at least the politician, the authoritarian leaders party going along with them regardless, no matter what.
Yeah. And what's really, when you look, I got more and more alarmed as I wrote the book, because when you have this historical context. So, for example, many leaders in the past, they created their own parties, like Mussolini. He founded the Fascist Party. Or if we take Silvio Berlusconi in Italy, who's a good comparison because he didn't destroy democracy, but he was really authoritarian. He created Forza Italia, named after a soccer chant. But Trump was an outsider. He came in and, we have these two very large old parties. And he domesticated it in under 4 years and made it his total tool, to the point where, they acquitted him from impeachment in the Senate out of fear. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown went around, he published an op-ed in the Washington Post. He said he went around and talked to his Republican colleagues because he was horrified. And they told him off the record, all of them, that they voted out of fear and they were intimidated. And this is not, we're no longer in a democratic political climate with a small d when stuff like this is happening. But we have to give Trump his due, because, again, he didn't create this party, but he made it his own in a shockingly swift time frame.
When we talk about we're hearing this word every day right now, and I'm not sure where you stand on exactly on the idea of a coup. But you write about military coups in this first section of the book, Getting to Power. And I think you also talk about what happened in Turkey a couple of years ago. There was a military coup attempt, and it was a fascinating thing to watch in the news, and it failed. And it's interesting as to why it fails. And you talk about that as well. What do you think about what's happening right now? Do you think it's fair to call it a coup, what the president is doing through mainly, I think, legal challenges that are all failing? And how come this most recent, I think it's the most recent coup in the world, that we've seen, failed?
Yeah, you can qualify, like you could define what Trump is trying to do as it's called a self coup or an auto coup, when the person's already in power and they're trying to stay there. So I'm doubly glad I put the age of military coups as one of the three main parts of the book, because it was very interesting to immerse myself in the coup literature. There's lots of kinds of coups. Now, we always think of a military coup. So this is more old school. They don't happen as much anymore. But it was really interesting to me that General Milley, the Joint Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, chose to make a pointed declaration recently that the armed forces will obey the Constitution and not an individual, like individual one, Trump. And so that tells me that, there was movement. Trump was trying to get some movement in this direction, because we know from the protests in the summer how infiltrated the military and policing, law enforcement are by extremist ideas. So that's not working, the military thing, I think. So now he's doing 21st century rulers. Democracy dies through paperwork, right? They have lawyers, and Trump's always done this in his business, lawyers and accountants to try and get around the rules. Right. And he's done, over 3,500 lawsuits in his day, which is huge. And so he's just applying this method of trying to call everything into question and tie it up in court. And so far, he's having he has a couple of victories and mostly losses.
I feel like the difference is when he did it in the private sector, basically the people he was suing, the entities he was suing, would just settle with him because they didn't want to keep paying the lawyers, and it didn't matter. The thing about Donald Trump is he never needs evidence for his lawsuits. It's the lawsuit itself which is the threat, and that's a problem with our legal system. But in this case, that's not the issue. All of these courts are saying there's no evidence here. They go on TV where they can lie legally, but they can't lie legally in a court of law, and they keep getting thrown out because there's no evidence. And I don't know if I have a question for you or if it pertains to the book, but the difference is, I think, between now and in the private sector is it's not going to work.
Yeah, and it's psychological warfare that he's been doing all along. Announcing that he's going to be there. Did you see this thing today? I saw on someone posted on Twitter that his campaign is shaking down. They're trying to get people to pay $50 to have a place at the inauguration ceremony in the Rose Garden. So he's acting as he's always done this appearance. And this is also important to coups, because some coups actually work with very little bloodshed, and they're about seizing the right targets like telecommunications and today's social media, and then giving the appearance that they've already taken power. So, I thought this thing where Trump is like staging, he says he's going to have an inauguration in the Rose Garden. This is psychological warfare. But doing the research for the book, I learned that, a lot of people around him have years of experience in this kind of psychological warfare. So Paul Manafort and Roger Stone actually worked for Mobutu in the Congo as lobbyists. And I knew
they'd gone and worked for some awful authoritarian in Africa, but I forgot who the last time I was talking about it. But you write about it in the book, and it's so interesting and terrifying.
Yeah, this is, again, how I became more and more alarmed. So they worked for Mobutu, who's in the book because he had a huge kleptocracy, and he's a very interesting figure. They also worked for Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines, and they were hired. I found the foreign agent when people still filled out foreign agent things. I found the requests where they were hired to oversee his 1985 snap election, which was widely considered to be fraudulent. So they have plenty of experience with this kind of wrongdoing. And then there's Steve Bannon, who has dedicated his life to far-right politics and psychological warfare.
He just got hired by Satan himself. He'll take money from anybody. Steve Bannon. He's such a. Someday I got to tell you about having worked with him at SiriusXM, Ruth. I shared a studio with him. But no, I think it's important to just make sure we're clear with what you're saying. Roger Stone and Paul Manafort, who managed Donald Trump's campaign in large part, also managed the campaigns of the worst, most evil leaders in the world, just to be clear. In part 2 of your book, Tools of Rule, I mean, I wish I had 3 hours to interview with you. Maybe we should just do many parts so I can get through it all as I get through the book. But you write about a number of things, including propaganda, virility, corruption, and violence. And I'm not going to have time to get to all of them. But I am finding it's interesting to talk with people, anybody, especially those who have strong opinions about politics, what they think and how they define corruption. That's an interesting conversation. What is corruption to you? What is government corruption, or what is private sector corruption? What is it in terms of your book? How do you describe the corruption of these authoritarian leaders in the past 200 years? Yeah,
so on the one hand, it's financial corruption. And so I have cases like Mobutu and Putin, who have genuine kleptocracies, where they're like these vampires, and all of the resources of the nation get sucked into their, private networks and their cronies. So there's that stuff. But I also talked a lot about kind of moral corruption. How do you co-opt people, like GOP, and make them work for you? How do you get them to do your bidding? And so one interesting thing is, in the past, these rulers who were very rich, like Gaddafi, they would pay everybody. But now it's the Putin information warfare playbook of compromat, where you blackmail people, and information is the new commodity. So it's less that they're gonna gain money from working for you, but it's the threat of loss. You could reveal secrets about them and damage their reputation, so they would lose everything. And this is what goes on today. And Trump has been doing this for many, many years with people. So that too came in from his private life into the government. So I talk about the GOP and how there are men like, we may want to think that authoritarianism is about obeying orders. We see the rallies and everybody saluting, but it's also about these lawless leaders who make people feel that there are no limits, and they're very excited about that. So somebody like William Barr, Attorney General, I have him in the book as somebody, I think he's been kind of liberated to be lawless and to be able to politicize justice. And it's not a very flattering fact about human nature, but some people, they want to break the rules. And there's no greater thrill than to have a president who tells them that they can break the rules and there's no limits to there's no bottom, as they say. Yeah. So that's how I treat corruption.
Virility is a chapter in this book that Ruth made me blush. How dare you? I was all like, oh, I'm going to have to talk with this
I know,
this academic about sex. Okay, let's do it. And it is fascinating and terrifying. And there is a lot of it, apparently. And I also, by the way, this is the thing. I know you get asked this in every interview, and I've asked it before, but how come it's always men? And I know that you say it's not impossible to have a female, but I just don't think using sex in the way that men do and needing it for any number of reasons, power, pleasure, whatever you want to call it. Like, I just don't see women doing that in general ever. Powerful women using sex that way. Obviously, they can be manipulative, but I mean, the way that it's used by many of the men that you write about, it's hard to imagine that being the case if it were a female in power, but I'll let you criticize that hypothetical.
There's plenty of female perpetrators and torturers in my book, but no, I'm not sending the book to my proper mother who lives in England.
Okay.
Because there's F-bombs, there's all kinds of this, which is not me, but them, the people I write about. So basically, I talk about not only hypermasculinity and how it intersects with their cults of personality, Putin stripping his shirt off like Mussolini did, and Trump. I wasn't allowed to use the image for copyright reasons, but Trump, who doesn't strip his shirt off for evident reasons, and instead photoshops his head onto Sylvester Stallone's body.
Oh, right.
And tweets it out from his personal account.
Well, he didn't do that, right? Like, somebody probably sent him that. I mean,
but it wasn't a retweet. He actually tweeted it. It originated from his account.
Right. Meaning
stuff.
It's more, meaning the difference that it coming from him as opposed to him kind of flippantly retweeting it is that he had to really find that, identify with it and share it.
So how they use this cult of their male, alpha males, being alpha males, they're protectors of the nation, they're warriors, all of this. But I also talk about the sex addictions that some of the leaders had. And so it's kind of think as though Jeffrey Epstein was the head of state and was able to use state resources for recruiting and grooming and tracking people and threatening them. And this is what my examples are: Mussolini, who had a whole system where if women would write him or he'd see them at rallies, and he'd get his secret police to kind of, bring them in or invite them, and then he would have his way with them, and then they'd be tracked by his secret police. Yeah. And Gaddafi was even worse. He held them captive. He had like sex dungeons. And this was hard to write about. It wasn't, the most fun part of writing the book. And he even had one built under the University of Tripoli, because he wanted instant gratification. So the accent was on what happens when male leaders have absolute power, and how it's not just a private affair because they hijack the resources of the state. And they also these guys spent like 3-4 hours a day on their sex lives. So it gets into no, they're not efficient leaders.
Right.
It's all about their private needs.
I also think it's really important that at the end of the chapter about virility, when talking about Trump, you talk about the people that he has appointed. And so many of the men that he's appointed have been accused of sexual harassment or just domestic abuse, including, obviously, and most prominently, I think, Justice Kavanaugh, who's on the Supreme Court. And I think that matters. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. It's not only for their own selfish needs in terms of the sex and how they use it for power, but they also appoint other men who are in the similar image. And that is, I don't know what word to use to describe. It's very dangerous and horrific.
And it's part of an ethos of male lawlessness. When Trump said, this quote's not in the book, but it'll be familiar to everybody. When you're a star, they let you do it.
Yeah,
you could do anything.
Yeah,
that's like you could actually. That's kind of one of the centers of the book. You could steal, you could commit violence, you could have your way with women and men without asking. And, you have your personality cult that still lets you seem, above it all.
I think you use a quote from Mussolini's wife, and he was with many women, but at the end, after he died, and she said something like, he was a weak man. He was a small man. Some people have taken issue with the title of your book being Strong Men. So the final question is about the criticism of the title and the truth about so many of these men, including Donald Trump, who is the weakest of men by every measurement of strength. And I think the one that I measure, like if I'm looking at see who's strong, Ruth, I'm usually like, does that guy get it, or woman? Are they affected by a breeze or rain? Oh, they are? Well, then that's weak. I mean, Trump is afraid of a breeze. He's afraid of a raindrop. He's afraid to bleed. He obviously got out of the war. He's not tough. He's not strong by most measures of strength, but yet the question remains.
Yeah, so it's partly ironic, the title. It's referring to so I use it to refer to the subset of authoritarian that not only, wrecks or damages democracy, but they use this cult of male power as an element of their legitimacy. It's important to their appeal for many people. And we've seen this with Trump. So in that sense, I take it seriously, the machismo, but I also show abundantly throughout the book how they are weak. They are the most, they have the weakest egos. They are brittle, and that's why they're vindictive. And they're hardly an example of the calm and collected male, the classic virility, the canons going back to ancient times of the virile warrior. Many of them are the opposite.
So much more to get to, including the whole propaganda piece. Watching right now, I don't know if you're paying that close attention, but it's really interesting what's happening with Rupert Murdoch and his empire, and that he's known Trump since the 70s. He's clearly turned his back on him. And Fox doesn't know what to do with it. It seems like the primetime guys don't take any orders because they run the show. And I mean, specifically, obviously Hannity, but Tucker and Laura Ingraham to some extent. But they're confused as to what they should be, because we all know that once you turn on Trump, if you're a right-wing media person, you are going to lose money, fans, friends, and followers. It's almost always been the case on radio, internet, and cable TV. When you turn, you lose.
Yeah, and the other lesson of this, and I have a sentence in the book that everyone can be used and discarded by the ruler, because the minute he doesn't need you anymore, it's like, what have you done for me lately? Like hourly. And so this whole saga of Fox News, which I think I say in the book, they're the co-producer of the Trump presidency in some ways in terms of its messaging. And then he turned on them.
Yeah. So do you want to
they're a part of like the use and discard machine.
And it never, ever fails, including on his wives. And so do you want to make a bet? And I have to say the time and the date, because you know what's coming. It's 4:35 on November 23rd when Ruth and I are speaking. When does he turn on Giuliani? Because it seems like he's never going to turn on Giuliani, but he turned on Michael Cohen. They just threw Sidney Powell under the bus. But Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump are meant for each other. They're a match made in heaven, because neither of them has any character, and both of them have heads that leak. But I mean, I just don't see that one. I can't imagine that happening yet, Ruth. Giuliani's the last lawyer that would seemingly sacrifice his reputation for Donald Trump.
I think I have a phrase in the book that they bring out the worst in people. They make people be their worst selves. Whether it's a regular, ordinary person who starts beating up people because Trump got them excited at a rally, or it's people like Barr and Lindsey Graham and all the other villains of this administration. They really do they know how to bring out the worst in everyone so that they can be as bad as they are. But here's the morale of the story is that I tracked all the personal lawyers, what happens to the personal lawyers of these guys. Mm-hmm. And a high percentage of them go to jail, although the leader never goes to jail. So like Michael Cohen and Berlusconi's personal lawyer went to jail. So they take the fall for them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Some of them die of old age and some of them die in a drainage pipe. Ruth, this book is so good. I mean, I may have, just when I finish it, we can do it again because I'm learning so much and it's all so relevant, sadly, again, and so important. But I think it matters so much that we understand not only the people that you're writing about, but those who support them in government, in the military, and in the public. Yeah. I think we really need to understand where that support comes from and when, if ever, it dies. And it doesn't always.
Yeah, the enablers.
The enablers.
He's
yes.
Nothing without his enablers, as I say.
Yeah, that's maybe another chapter or another book, The Enablers. Yeah. So great talking to you again. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on this book, Strong Men. I hope everybody gets it right now.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ruth. Dr. Ruth Ben Giat. Go get that book. Tell her you heard her on the show as well. If you haven't given this show a 5-star review on iTunes, that is something that you could absolutely do to help me right now. Go to iTunes and give it a 5-star review and write an actual review of why you love the show. That metric matters a lot, and I could get over 1,000 of those with just a few more. And that's a big number on iTunes. All right, now coming up is my second guest of today's show, is a woman who I've known for over 20 years, almost 25 years, because I met her when I was a young man in my early 20s, working at the front desk of a premier fitness club called Equinox, when Equinox was still family-owned in its first few years of operation in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where she was a member, and I was a wannabe stand-up comedian. When I would see her come in, I knew who she was. I knew she was a big-name comedian. And I approached her after a couple times. We talked. She and I became friends over the years. I watched her kids grow up. And then I'd done a lot of comedy with her and a lot of gigs with her and been through a lot with her. And she was there with me on the last day at SiriusXM. She was my final guest on the final show that I did there. She's got a new book out. I love her. I care about her so much. I think she's so smart and thoughtful. And we had a wide-ranging conversation. We talked for 25 minutes before the word Trump came up, and getting her take on so many different things, on speech issues and, quote, cancel culture and censorship for comedians. We talked about politics. We talked about gender issues and parenting and raising kids. And I'm just so happy to have reconnected with Judy and had her on the podcast for the first time. Here's my conversation with Judy Gold, and go get her new book. Yes, I can say that. When they come for the comedians, we are all in trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just told you all about her, and now here she is, joining me via Zoom, the legend, one of the most well-respected comedians living today, Judy Gold.
I wouldn't go that far, but yes. Hey now. Hey, Peter.
Hi, miss you. You and I broke up.
What the fuck are you talking about? We broke up.
I left Sirius, so I wasn't seeing you much anymore. They left me, and you were there on my last show day.
But how perfect was the timing for that?
You could look at it two ways. How do you see it?
I see that, there's a pandemic and it's sort of in disarray. I mean, are people even listening to Sirius? No one's in their cars. No one's. I don't know.
For me, that job was about the salary and the insurance and the benefits.
Right. You were safe.
The financial security that it provided.
Right.
And I look at it and say, that was never going to be forever. I had that gig longer than almost anybody has a gig in our world. And I should just be thankful for that. It gave me an amazing career, and I'm super appreciative of it. But as soon as, my severance ended, the pandemic started, and I would have been working from home if I was still hosting that show. But that's a nonsense trail to go down, to think about what would have been. And what is now is I've created an amazing community here with the podcast of people during the most challenging time of most of our lives. So.
Right. And you know what?
And they're all paying me directly now.
You also have to realize how lucky you were that doesn't happen to most people in this business.
What doesn't?
And that you have a gig that long.
Yep.
That you have, financial security.
Yep.
I mean, if I don't have to worry for 6 months, I'm thrilled.
Right.
But I still worry every fucking month. What if?
Right.
I've been broke. I've had money. It's a struggle in this business. It's a terrible struggle, especially when you're a parent.
Yeah. Why do you say that? I mean, I think it's somewhat obvious, but I want to know how you articulate it.
Well, first of all, the stress of not having money bleeds into everything you do, especially with your kids when they, want or need something and you want to get it for them and you're like, oh, fuck. But it's also, you want to give them the best of everything, but you also want to teach them the value of money. But you want to not, because when you worry about money, when you're stressed out, they know it, and you want to be able to say to them, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And it's really hard to say that when you don't think everything's going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's not, that doesn't seem genuine, and you want to be genuine. But what you're saying is certainly applies to me, that when I'm stressed out about money or other things, I take it out on the people around me. Not all the time.
Always. Or you can't hide it.
But I do it, and it sucks when I do it.
You can't hide it. I mean, you read about all these people that are like, I never wanted for anything, and my mother worked 85 jobs and blah, blah, blah. I mean, those are special people. Yeah. I mean, I get really stressed out. And yeah, and it's not even like, it's like you can do without. I could do without. Right. I don't need new clothes. I don't need anything new. Okay, so I have a shitty this, and I don't go out to eat for a few weeks or blah, blah, blah. But you want to make sure they have everything. I think
for me, it was mostly about the health insurance. Like the health insurance. You want to be able to not. It's one thing you're talking about. Kind of, you want to be able to provide for them and give them good experiences and so on. But at the base, what you want for them is to make sure that if they had a health issue. And, as soon as I lose my job, we have our first health issue. My daughter's scoliosis. I mean, it's not life-threatening, but it's expensive as hell and scary and horrible. But
right.
Of course, that happens.
But also, I think there's another element with you, which is that as much as you try to say you're not, you're a guy. You're a father, and you are a straight guy who wants to provide for the family. And you have these identified, gender
You know what,
roles.
though? I will push back on it, because if my wife did, I'd be fine with it.
Right.
Like, it's not for me. It's that I can. It's that my career has been good enough that I can get paid X for this gig, and she can't for her work. And so it does fall on me. But if the roles were reversed, I think psychologically I'd be like, can I go out in the woods, or can I just take care of the kids? And I would be egotistically fine with that. Maybe not. Maybe not. But let me ask you, if you love comedy. And so even though it doesn't provide, and even with all of your success, always consistent financial security, do you ever think what else you might have done? Do you ever have any regrets about pursuing a career in entertainment? And what would you say to a young person, including your own sons, about a similar wager? I
have been very severely depressed and thought, what if? But I honestly, no, I couldn't do anything. I really honestly could not do anything else. And that's why I've never done anything else. I've always, but, could I be happy, being a teacher, or, which I don't know. I don't know. It would have been easier. I wish, I could have made life easier. But I just would have had that burning desire. First of all, I did my first stand-up set at 19. And when you know at that time that nothing ever compared to anything like that, you know, and anything you've ever done has never compared. I mean, being on stage for me and writing, I like writing, but it's,
It's also, you said that you like writing. Have you, this is a separate question. I don't know how old you are, but you've had a career that has afforded you every single experience. When I look at your career, now you have this amazing book, which we'll talk about. You were an Emmy Award winning writer on one of the most successful shows ever, Rosie's show. You've had specials and albums. You've done everything good and bad, like shit gigs and the highest level gigs a comedian can do. Is there anything that you haven't done that you would want to do? What? Really? And don't say like perform on a yacht for Jennifer Lopez or something. No, that's like, don't make one up. I would like, you've also hosted a show. You host your podcast, which is very popular. Right.
I would like to be a regular character on a great TV show, like a socially relevant, just amazing television show. I would like that.
So is like what, like This Is Us, like socially relevant?
Yeah, not like This Is Us. Like, I
haven't even seen that show. My wife was watching. I really thought that was going to be the perfect example. And for you to tell me, not the case.
No, we watched it in the beginning. I just couldn't. It was.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything socially relevant.
Some of it. I can't. What is that term? I can't. What's that term when you
tolerate, comprehend, justify?
No, what the fuck is it? When you can excuse the unrealistic,
suspend disbelief
parts. Yes, I can't do that. It's not in me, which is why I'm a comic, I think. But I can't do that. I'm like, that's never gonna happen. That would never, so. And it's so networky, but yes. Okay. I would love to be on a great series. And I was supposed to be in a Broadway play starting in September. We were starting rehearsals and it didn't happen because of COVID. So that was also a bucket list thing that it was a straight play. Yeah.
Both of those things are still obviously possible. I just thought I look at you now, the book and all of the stand-up, TV, radio, podcasting, you've done everything. And it's hard to imagine what could be left. But those are good examples. Those are really good examples. But you don't feel, you feel, I would imagine, accomplished and proud of what you've achieved in your career, or are you a person who is more empty no matter how much success you have? Because I feel like even though you've dealt with anxiety and depression, you've been open about it, it's not because of that. I feel like your career is, you're really proud of it, and you should be.
I think it's a combination. I mean, I think if I'm in a good place, I can say, you know what? No one can take this away from you, and you did that, and you did that. But have I been lucky? No, I have worked for every fucking, I am not one of those comics who someone came along and was like, oh, come here. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that. Nothing. Every fucking thing I've ever gotten was from hard work. No one ever handed me. I think I'm the only comic from, the 90s who didn't get a development deal. I mean, even people who are not even around anymore were getting like the network paying you to just audition for their network.
Deals.
Holding deals.
Yeah. I remember that. I started around the time those were being handed out.
Yeah. And it was like everyone and not me. And I could have, I go back. Maybe I should have stayed in LA and brought the kids up there. But no, I did what I did and I'm not going to go back and regret it.
How do you feel? Let's switch gears and talk about same kind of questions. As a parent, you have raised two boys who are now men, and you have been, and I've known you the whole time. And I've always felt like they were a huge, very important part of your life where every decision was made around them. Do you feel like a success as a parent?
Sometimes. I feel like I made a lot of mistakes. But
how can I not make mistakes?
You can't. You are you. I mean, I think part of it was, I brought them up in this tiny apartment. I mean, I don't think they ever felt unloved but I wish I wish I didn't have a temper. I wish I didn't get angry over stupid things. I wish I don't know. There's just certain things I could have been better at, I think. But it was like at one point I was just a single parent, and that was really hard. But that made me much stronger.
What is different about being a gay parent? A same-sex parent? I guess it's probably different.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's that people don't realize that when you're a child of a same-sex couple, gay people, LGBTQ people talk about coming out. It's a very important, I guess I would say process, but some people are always out. Some people have like loving family, but coming out is a big story for every LGBTQ person because you have to not first admit it to yourself and then admit it to everyone else.
Right. Yeah.
And when you're the child of same-sex parents, you have to realize your child has to come out every single day because everyone they encounter thinks they have a mother and a father. So I think there were burdens put on them, which I don't think they even give a shit. I know they don't care, but
do they have friends with similar situation? 2 dads, 2 moms? Is there like a place? Is there like a,
I'll just let you know that it is a chick magnet for them.
For real. I've met one of your son's girlfriends and it seems like they have, I think you're being serious, right?
Oh, chick magnet. I mean, you meet a straight girl and you say, yes, I was brought up by lesbian parents. They're like all over you like a fucking...
Because they make all these assumptions about what that means.
I mean, I asked Henry's ex-girlfriend if he is different than other guys she dated. And she said, oh my God, he talks about his feelings all the time. You know?
Interesting.
And they also are not afraid to cry. They're not afraid to. I think they're very in touch with shit guys are usually not in touch with or don't explore within themselves, like feelings and expressing themselves and expressing those and the need to do that. So
that's great. Do you think Jewish men are lean towards a lot of that as well, though? I think
it depends on the parents. I mean, I think that Jewish men, I mean, you have these mothers who, I mean, there is that stereotypical Jewish mother, but, it does come from a place of, if from generation to generation, you've been kicked out of every country. You've been always worried. Where's my kid? Am I going to see my kid? Are they going to take my kid? That anxiety seeps into every generation. So you have the overbearing Jewish mother, like, eat, please, because you don't know when you're going to get your next meal. It's all from a place of marginalization and worst case scenario, because we've experienced the worst case scenario.
But I mean, that idea of what you're describing as more typical feminine qualities. I find that
there are Jewish men,
more in Jewish men. I mean, obviously we're generalizing about gender and ethnicity here, but I find it more common, and I'm actually attracted more to it in men. I look for men who are unafraid of sensitivity and unattracted to like machismo. Like that bores me.
Right. But it's also, you think about the religion itself is a thinking person's religion. It's all about looking at things from a different
questioning, critical thinking,
every which way, questioning. Bar bat mitzvah is taking a piece of Torah and saying, okay, how is this relevant to you? How is this? So there's that, plus the arts and culture is very, that
social
is also
justice
a stereotype that they have with Asian men have the same stereotype. But there's also that idea of not being afraid of being in the school play or playing the piano or learning the musical. It's not all.
Right.
It's like, how many books did you read? Or, what I mean?
Yes. How many books have you read, or what are your favorite books is a great conversation starter. And it's also a great way to find out if, what kind of the depth of thoughtfulness of a man, especially, I feel like. Well, it's that. And it's also like, do you like the theater? Do you, Sure.
Look,
Do you like the theater? It's a great question. Like if you just went into like a fraternity, like some typical masculine space, I'm like, how do you guys feel about the theater? Anybody? Who's your favorite playwright? That'd be a funny bit for like a.
But it's also like, look, my kids grew up in a theater house. First of all, we spent the summers in P-Town.
Right.
Henry, Varla Jean Merman, the drag queen, is getting dressed backstage while I'm doing my show, and Henry's back there with him watching him put his tits on her. They know every drag queen. They know every, they've lived on stages and in the back of, rooms and in green rooms. No interest. I'm like, let's go to a play. No interest,
Oh, so having.
Henry will look, maybe he wants to go see the Harry Potter play or something, but it's not like they gravitate to that. He loves comedy, but they love sports. It's literally that they're fucking guys who love sports.
Yeah. It's a nature nurture conversation, as well as this idea that when they turn 12 or 13, they're way more impressed, or affected by the people they're around than their parents, their family. Like it's their friends.
Right. But I love to play outside. Like that's what, and
that's where that sports.
I brought them to the basketball courts. We would play baseball in Central Park. Like that was what
Are you an athlete? I forget.
No, because I was a runner. I did run the marathon, and I do play tennis and swim. And
I know you're obviously a very healthy fitness person, because I met you at the gym, and here's what I know. I can know about you that almost nobody else can, is that you were consistently dedicated to fitness, because I worked at the front desk and then there as a personal trainer, and you were a member, and I would see you all the time.
Right.
That's how I know you're how dedicated
but
personally
can I tell
you are.
You something?
And that's never changed, has it?
Well, now the COVID, it's really bad. I don't know what to do. And I don't, some days I don't even leave my apartment. I'm getting a Peloton, I think.
Oh, really? If not, what have you been doing since it began?
I was playing tennis all summer, and then I would go. So the gym in Provincetown, they have one room where they have 3 spinning bikes.
A lot of stories begin with this gym in Provincetown.
Yeah. Shut up. And so they have one room with 3 spinning bikes, and only one person is allowed in that room. So I have gone to spin in that room, and that's it, and then left. But I played tennis every day, hiked. But it's not, I like to fucking learn something on my, and work out. And my trainer, I haven't seen my trainer.
Since COVID began.
I went to his apartment once, and we did virtual, but.
Why him? Why? I have questions about trainer, because my wife is a trainer. I was a trainer. How long have you been with him, and why is it a him? Do you think gender is a thing for men, for women, for straights, for gays when it comes to personal training? What do you think? I have strong theories here.
He has my trainer for, 20 plus years.
Oh my God, you've bought him a house. You've legitimately bought him a shed.
He is such a good trainer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's so smart. He's hilarious, but he is so knowledgeable. And he's not like a trainer. He is like he has trained Olympic athletes up till 90-year-old women who are, he is a phenomenal, his knowledge of the human body and of
straight
and also, straight. And also his, I remember when I had my knee replaced and he came over and we went through, I have all this exercise shit here, but now it's in P-Town, but like, you know, just straps and weights. And he went through the apartment and he put the straps on the doorknob and he showed me how to do all these different kinds of, like, he's amazing. He's amazing.
So
wait, what do you think of the Peloton situation?
I don't know much about it. It looks great. Every time I hear it, it just sounds like
he hates it. You know what he does?
Isn't it just a spinning bike? What's special about it?
No, it's got a big TV and you can take classes. But you know what bike he has that I use that I love? The one with the big fan and the arms, the ones the boxers use.
Oh, that's so hard. That's so much more work.
That's what I do. I fucking love that one.
You love to sweat. You do intense workouts. You've always done intense workouts. It must be something.
He does like, I'll do like left arm, right leg, opposite arm, opposite leg. I'll do same arm, same leg. I'll do just legs. I'll do just arms. I'll do everything. I'll do one arm. There's one exercise I do where I do 15 seconds right arm, 15 seconds right leg, 15
I mean,
seconds
it's hard for me, and
yeah.
this is going to sound inappropriate to people listening, but not to you, but I smell you. I've known what you smelled like for 20 years, and you've always smelled the same good scent. Always. Every time I walk by you at the gym, every time I see you out doing comedy, you've always smelled good. Always.
Yeah, baby.
That's so nice to be able to say that about yourself, I think.
Well, I like
hygiene.
to be hygienic. I enjoy being hygienic.
We've been talking for 27 minutes and not talked about politics and obviously not gotten to your book yet. And I think of you often in terms of people that hated Trump the most, who are able to articulate it the best, who never stopped talking about it. And I think that's what I want to say to you is that I think that all of your complaints about Donald Trump that you repeated, they always changed. They weren't the same because he changed every day. I think it's important that people like you with voices like yours kept saying all the craziness, because I think that in some ways we allowed it to be normalized because it was too overwhelming and excessive. You never did. You always made it seem like the next outrage was the first outrage. And I think that's actually very important that you were able to capture that rage for so many.
Thank you for that, because
it wasn't worthless. It was very helpful.
I did a lot of radio shows regularly where, you know how I am. And I am enraged. I am enraged about it. And people would write to me, thank you. I needed that. You know, you're saying everything I'm thinking. And then there, of course, there were people in my orbit like, Judy, you have to. No, I don't have to relax. Like my mother used to always be like, Judith, when are you getting your blood pressure up? Because it fucking the injustice, the fact that, you know, I will fight for what's right and I will not shut up about. I'm sorry. It's just. No, this person should not be getting away with this shit.
Where does your allergy to injustice begin? Is it in your upbringing? Is it the AIDS crisis that you were very involved in being against? I made it sound like you were for it.
Yeah, it was I started the whole pandemic.
That you began, the AIDS crisis, the virus you began. What was it that made you the person you are politically? Was it growing up, where you grew up, when you grew up, who you are? You write, very vulnerably about your own upbringing, not only in the book, but you've talked about it for forever. So what was it?
I think I've always, and my mother was like this, like always on the side of the underdog. But my mother was very proactive in a way, like she would boycott certain products if they were politically horrible, anti-Semitic.
Did she not buy German cars?
No German car, no Ford.
Oh, right.
Never a Ford because he was an anti-Semite. You know, like all this. Okay. And then, I don't know. I've always had this like, no, that's not fair. I've always been like that. Yeah. Always from day one. And like, why aren't we talking? I was always the one that was like, wait, why aren't we talking? Everyone's thinking like I was, and they were like, Judith, shut up. But I just didn't understand. And I still don't understand. And also just I guess being gay is a part of it. And it's like, who the fuck are you to tell me because I'm a woman, I can't do this, and if I'm this, or this person can't do that, or I just no.
Do you think that this is I'm projecting here, but I wonder because I think this quality. I think we actually share this, you and I, even though we're not very similar in most ways. In terms of the underdog and injustice and seeing it and then saying something about it. You're the person who in the grocery store, on the street, at the PTA meeting, on the staff writers, who most likely, if someone's going to say something, it's going to be you and it's going to be me. And it's gotten me mostly in trouble.
Same.
My neighbor.
Same.
Sirius XM, I now believe a part of it, not all of it. And I don't disparage them because, like I said, it was awesome what they gave me, but it didn't help me that I was outraged and spoke to all the executives about rehiring Steve Bannon. A PTA meeting in town where I stood up to the bully. Like, it never really helps me. It's not, but I can't not do it. And I'm not trying to be noble. I'm wondering if
okay, you're saying it doesn't help you.
Well, it doesn't help me progress, but it clears my conscience. It clears my conscience.
That's the thing. I can't sleep.
I can't sleep either. I can't watch someone be bullied.
Right. And it's also same with my career. Like if I was getting offered a job and I was like, something's wrong about this. Like most people would be like, you know what? I'll do that and get that. If it was something that I didn't deserve, like
integrity.
I mean, exactly.
No,
and I feel like if I had a little less of that, maybe I would have gotten but I couldn't live with myself.
Now, are you still doing that NRA gig next month?
Yeah. Oh shit. I gotta clean. I was gonna meet Don
Are you
Jr.
still doing that, Proud Boys?
We're cleaning our guns together.
So how
what I hate? You know what I hate the most? Hypocrisy. That enrages
Are you ever a hypocrite, though? I just literally read an article that you, about you, not an article, some YouTube asshole calling you a hypocrite, literally just before we got on. So it's funny you say that. And it was about your book and political correctness and you railing against that. And yet you writing the CNN.com opinion piece, for which I interviewed you about SNL not allowing or firing Shane Gillis before they hired him. And somebody called you a hypocrite on that. And I don't.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
On that specific issue, or really because of that you were okay with the Saturday Night Live's decision on that specifically, or because of some other instances?
Well, first of all, Shane hates when I talk about it. He's asked me not to, but let's talk about. I mean, what I wrote for CNN was a nuanced, thoughtful piece.
I just read it again just before I talked to you. It is nuanced and it was thoughtful. Yeah, it's an article.
I never say he should never be able to do stand up. I don't say he's not funny. I don't, I have to say that I think that I was in the middle of writing this book when that happened. And I'm writing about, Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and Richard Pryor and Joan Rivers and all these people and people getting arrested. Belle Barth got arrested. She was an old cabaret / comedian, and then this whole idea of corporations. If you're going to work for a corporation, you're gonna sell a bit of your soul, but I think that I was railing against, because honestly, I'm happy to listen. And I do see why they're pissed off at me, I think. But But I love comedy. I love comedy more than anything. But the problem was I didn't know where the joke was. And I always know where the joke is.
That's the point. And you open the book with that, and everybody should buy Judy's book. If you know me, you know I love her and all of what she does. Yes, I can say that when they come for the comedians, we are all in trouble. It came out this summer. It's very, very good, important, entertaining. And you say that if you're going to take a risk on a joke, make a joke that's risky, edgy, near the line, it better be funny. That's how I've always described it to the civilian world, the non-comedian world, is listen, if you're going to take that risk, if you're going to quote punch down, whatever it is, better be good. Better be good. And Nick DiPaolo got fired from Sirius XM. Nick's one of the funniest guys. I always thought as a comedian, the joke he made, it wasn't even really a joke. He was about kids getting shot and killed, and it wasn't funny. And I was like, what are you doing? Why would you write that? And it was like, you can't do that. If you're going to do that, it better at least be an attempt at a joke, and it better be really good, or else you're going to get in trouble. And maybe your whole career shouldn't be measured by that. I think it's a nuanced conversation. But the point is, if you're going to make a joke, an edgy joke, it better be funny.
But I feel like...
But how can it be funny if it offends everybody, Judy?
Here's the other thing, though. You know... I feel like if you read the article and you read the book, I don't think you would think I was a hypocrite.
No, you can't. But that's what we've lost. We've lost with most people, and I'm guilty of this, the nuance around an entire person, their career, or just their thoughts on apples. I didn't say I hate all apples. I said I don't like that one apple, and you said I don't like all apples. I didn't say that. Listen to the rest of how I feel about apples.
But it's also like, the article wasn't political correctness because it was brand. It was a brand thing. It was a corporate thing. Yep. It was he did have these recordings of this, and because he's working for a network, all the people who felt disparaged by him, it was a corporate decision. I'm sure that Lauren probably still wanted him, but it was like, these are corporate money. And because there's plenty of shit I've done that I wouldn't, joke. I'm sure same with you. Jokes you wouldn't do anymore. I mean, times change. But when you take the
I'm still doing a lot of the jokes that you won't do anymore of yours.
When you take the intent and the context and nuance out of material, that's when you get in trouble.
I think though it's different. I mean, your book is almost exclusively about comedians and humor and why political correctness is ruining that. I wonder though if, even though I agree with pretty much the case that you're making, I wonder where you think it is in terms of the threat that it is to speech, to comedy, to entertainment, or the larger society, because I feel like a lot of the kind of cancel culture and political correctness talk that we especially hear from folks on the right, and you're as progressive as they come, but you seem to agree with them to some extent on that, is some of it's misplaced, or a lot of it I feel like is they're making a mountain out of a molehill. There are, like you mentioned in your book, what's his name, Nimesh Patel,
Nimesh Patel, yeah.
And it's such a terrible thing that Columbia University students did to him while he was performing there. But a lot of people cite that. A handful of those. They were all wrong. But I feel personally, I have no problem performing at colleges. I haven't seen much change. I haven't changed my act. I don't think it's a big problem. I think it's a problem, but I don't think it's that big of a problem. I don't know how to make it more nuanced. So I guess, how big of an issue do you think it is? And were you writing this book to kind of put it in context and say this shouldn't get any worse than it's already gotten? How do you see it affecting comedy, much less society as a whole, the kind of political correctness and cancel culture? Sorry I talked so long.
I feel like I think that comedians are truth tellers, and we speak truth to power. Mm-hmm. I think there is a reason that on every one of these panel shows, like The View, The Talk. There's always a comedian there. Always.
And there's a lot of comedians who have turned into serious commentators.
Right. But there's also, you do MSNBC or you do CNN, and they're like, we're doing a panel. We've got this expert, that expert, and we want you.
Right.
Why? Because they know we're going to tell the truth. We're going to break the tension. We're going to call things out because we do that. That's what great comedy does. It makes you think. It makes you laugh. But it's a weapon. It's, as much as it is a coping mechanism and medicine and all the great things about it, it is a weapon. Satire is a weapon, and it can change people's minds. It can disarm people. It can enlighten people. It can make people angry. When a comedian whose only goal is to make you laugh, really, when they get on stage, they just want laughs. When you say, no, you can't say that, because it offends me personally. No, the world doesn't fucking revolve around you. No comic was thinking about you when they wrote the joke. So shut the fuck up. You don't like it. Change the channel. Turn off the radio like you do when you hear a song you don't like. Too fucking bad. Stop holding comedians to a higher standard because you got offended. This whole idea that no one can have an uncomfortable what is this? Like, we need a safe space. Oh, sorry, the world is uncomfortable. Nothing's easy. Sorry, you have a feeling. Tough shit.
Do you think that everything that you just said, that I could say all that? You are a gay Jewish woman. 3 strikes. Therefore, when you say it, I can't say easy for you to say you're privileged. I guess I could say you're white. But what if, in this case, a black woman said to you, easy for you to say all of that or something? And can a white guy say what you said and have it, I think, resonate as much? Because I think no on the latter, on the white guy.
Really?
Yeah, I think that it's very easy. If I said everything you said, somebody would say, it's easy. You can go through life without anybody making a comment to you or judging you or assuming you.
Well, I guess because I have,
like, I'd rather have you say it.
Discriminated against. Yeah, I have been discriminated. But it's also like, I'm a comic. Like, stop, laugh at yourself. Stop taking yourself so fucking seriously.
Right.
Comedians, think of Charlie Hebdo. I mean, like, there was Hitler had a fucking, he wanted to kill the 3 Stooges.
He did?
Yes, he wanted them dead. They were on his death list because of 2 films they did. What were they? One of them was the Something Nasty, and the 2 films. He hated. He wanted to kill Charlie Chaplin. He was like so mad at Charlie Chaplin for portraying him in The Great Dictator. He hated Jack Benny. He wanted look at Trump. He can't even go to the fucking White House Correspondents' Dinner because he can't take a fucking joke.
He wants to kill the 3 Musketeers and the 3 Amigos. He thinks they're real, and he thinks no one has heard of them. Similar to Hitler.
But there was a Treachery Act that was passed in 1934 by Hitler. You couldn't mock.
Right.
Death, punishable by death.
Right. Yeah.
That is how powerful comedy is. So when you start shutting us up, so you're closing your mind, and B, you're deciding you want to live in a world without laughter. Sorry, not worth it.
Do you think comedy has really taken a turn for the worse because of this trend of political correctness and microaggressions and safe spaces and all of that? Do you think?
I do think.
Really?
Look, I do think these. No, I think that. Look, here's the thing. I do 1,000 spots as much. I do a lot of stand up. It has gone from laughing to people like the audience. You say something that is edgy or on the edge, right? And the audience oftentimes now will laugh. Their involuntary response. They'll it's like, ooh,
right.
They laugh because that is the natural thing to do. And then they think, oh no, I'm not supposed to laugh at that. That's where we get in trouble. That's what I'm talking about. There's so many times I'm doing a bit and they're like, ooh. And now I just say, okay, you can write me at judygold.com and tell me, I'm a transphobic, man-hating, fucking, okay, just forget. It's a fucking joke. We're here to make you laugh. It doesn't, like, this whole idea. I read about Gilbert getting fired from Aflac.
Yeah.
And that he found out he was fired by tweet. But he also talks about, first of all, those jokes were hilarious that he tweeted.
Yeah.
No one knew no one knew how bad the tsunami was at the time he tweeted those, and Twitter was new, and his followers were like, "Can you tweet some inappropriate?" That's what he does.
Right.
So that night, he's sitting in his apartment. He's watching the news. The newscaster comes on, tsunami, and it was horrible, and the death and destruction, and this many people killed, and blah blah blah. And the newscaster's going on, and then the newscaster says, "And to make matters worse." Gilbert said, he's sitting there, I made the tsunami worse.
That's so bad.
It's like you go
right.
In the Holocaust. The people in the concentration camps were putting on shows for each other. The ones, what people write about, the ones that made us laugh, the ones with the senses of humor, they survived. They had spirit, My mother had this saying, if we weren't laughing, we'd be crying. And that is so true. We have to laugh. We need to laugh. It's such a part of American culture. What other country sends comedians over to embedded military bases to make their soldiers laugh? America. Does any other country send comedians over?
No, but most other countries don't have lots of bases all over the world.
It doesn't matter.
But I think, who else did you interview? You mentioned Gilbert, and I love in the book that it's like part journalist, part journalistic endeavor, part autobiographical, and part kind of interview. You reached out to a lot of people and talked to them. Who else did you?
I think the book is a polemic. It's definitely an argument. And the thing about it is, for each chapter where I argue a point, my evidence is great stand-up, is funny jokes. So that's what makes it so entertaining. It's like, and I swear to God, after Bill Burr hosted SNL, I had people write to me saying, you know what? I understood.
Oh, that's great
stuff.
After reading your book, they thought differently about Bill's.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's a huge achievement.
Yeah. Someone wrote to me and said, I think I would have been offended before, but I got it, And then, you think of all these people who don't get it. They make assumptions, and little do they know. They're like, why is he talking about African Americans and their plight? It's like, do they know he has biracial children and he's married to an African? No, he doesn't even say it. But that's what's so funny. His jokes are so fucking funny. But people personalize. You can't personalize everything. It's not about you.
Your book could be used. Yes, I can say that, everybody. Go get it right now. I think in college level courses, have you in the tour? The book came out in March. I think this is the final interview you're doing. You've done 5,000 interviews in July.
The book came out at the end of July.
You've done.
And I did not get to do a book tour. Did not get to do a book tour.
But let's name. You did so many big name shows. You did the Today Show. You did. Did you do Colbert? You did it before the book. Did you not do it for the book? So many big shows that I saw you on. I saw on everybody's show. It's been great.
Well, I did.
Margaret Cho interviewed you. She's a good friend of yours.
I feel like it's an evergreen topic.
Yes.
And I do feel like it is a really important topic, especially now. I mean, we didn't even have comedians hosting award shows because, what if?
Right.
Cut the fucking shit. It's like, here's what got me the most. And then I have to go get I have to plug in the computer because I'm at 12%. But this is what really enraged me. This president and these other politicians spew out the most hateful, disgusting, threatening speech that literally incites violence and literally kills people. And their speech is protected, and comedians are getting fucking canceled for trying to make you laugh. That's what really pissed me off. This motherfucker Pocahontas this and that one. I wouldn't fuck her. Grab a pussy. Oh, okay, you could be president. But a comedian makes a fucking mistake or tries out a bit that's not that fucking funny. Oh, that's it. Done.
It's worse than your speech can incite violence. It's that not only are you a person who is saying and thinking this, you're also a person who is literally making laws. That's the difference. Comedians don't make any laws. They don't make any rules. We don't like following rules either, but we do follow rules.
But
we don't make the rules.
We question them. We talk about them. We make people see the,
sure, yes,
ridiculousness.
We make people think, but we can't we don't pass policy. The difference between, that's what I always say about comedians, the difference between comedians and everybody else, meaning if a principal of a school says a comment, that's bad. He's the principal of a school, of a high school. He can't say these things, even if it's a joke. He's the principal. A comedian is different. And then I'm getting the plug. But this is a very important point. Okay. When you look at Orange Fuckface's rallies, they are horrible, hacky stand-up shows. He repeats the same material. Well, that's every politician repeating, but yeah.
Right, but you see him get a laugh, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go on. It is... You see how he behaves when the audience laughs. He gets even more confidence.
So how are you feeling now that Donald Trump has lost?
His tantrum has been...
His long daily tantrum since... the election,
look, I've gone through a myriad of emotions because in the very beginning, I was like so sad that so many people bought his bullshit.
Okay, so just this too, I know the very beginning of the aftermath of the election, when you saw the results, at the very beginning, when you saw the results, is that what you're talking about? How you felt? Go ahead.
I felt, well, first of all, I had dread that night, like, oh no, this can't happen again. And then, okay. I felt really sad that 70 million people think it's okay for him to behave like it's not about your politics.
Nope.
It is about the fact that you are okay with this disgusting excuse, this classless, dumb murderer, who is so corrupt, surrounded by horrible people, fires, every person who he's so obviously mentally ill. He's so obviously a dictator. He's so obviously so anti-democratic. He so obviously does not care about anyone but himself. And you're okay with that being the leader of of our country and representing our country. We are the left, and kids being separated, and this fucking pandemic.
Where are you on child separation? Where are you on it? Pro, con?
Hey, no. And that is it. Like, I have learned. All right, here's the good things that happened. People are way more civic minded because there were so many times people were like, wait, can he really do that?
Yeah.
And then,
no, you're right.
So I think people did learn a lot about how the government works.
I try to fight apathy for as long as I hosted the show, just trying to get people interested in these issues. And none of my efforts could, or anybody's, Jon Stewart, big name people, could make a dent in someone affecting your life and being a nightmare in your life. All of a sudden you're like, well, I got to pay attention to this. And then you learn, you're talking about civics. I mean, media literacy and civics. Yeah. You're forced to learn at knife point every day.
Right. And he terrorized us. He has taken so much space up in our heads and the anxiety and the depression and just, this COVID response. Horrible. Okay.
What response?
And the lie.
What response?
Yeah, the no COVID response, the no response. All right, whatever. So that, and then I was sitting in this chair over by the window on Saturday morning after the election. I was writing a piece for CNN about what the election says about America, right? And all of a sudden I hear screaming and horns going off and people banging thing and whistles and yay. And I look at my phone and Elisa wrote, Joe Biden won. And it was like, oh my God, everyone, I recorded it on my phone. I couldn't I went outside to a cafe, people all day, like, wow.
We were going to go for a hike that day for my birthday. And then that got announced. And I said, you know what? Let's go into New York. And Val and I drove the girls in and we went all over the Upper West Side beeping and screaming. And my 16-year-old, almost 16-year-old Ava said it was the most exhilarating thing she'd ever done in her life.
That I was outside. Yeah, that was. And people were so happy. And then, through this fucking baby temper tantrum and the lawsuits and, you know what? I have learned to, first of all, that a lot of the Republicans in the GOP that I really abhorred for so long, like the Steve Schmitz. I didn't like him when he was representing McCain, when he was, and that whole Sarah Palin,
Yeah, terrible.
That there are people with consciences and heart and do care. Their politics are different. And so I have learned that.
But they think sexual assault is terrible and overt racism is terrible. And overt corruption and self-dealing and appointing your family member is terrible.
They do love the country. They love democracy as much as I do. But they want to go about it different. That. Like I see that John McCain was. I mean, I'll never forget that time that woman said that shit about Obama in the audience.
He's an Arab. He's Arab.
Yeah,
he's Arab.
He said, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry, ma'am. He isn't.
My friend is a good man.
Yeah. So.
Which means Arabs are bad people. No, he's not an Arab. He's a good man. I was a little hung up by that. He's Jewish. No, he's good. Sounds different. But yeah,
no, but you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. No, it didn't help him. But that's the point that I think that you're talking about. And I realize this today is like they were never, John McCain and George W. Bush were never cruel enough for a huge portion of conservative Americans. Most of them, they were never mean enough. They thought if they went too far, that would turn people off. In reality, there's no too far. There's no. It's just they're anti-democratic. They want a theocracy. They don't want government. They want a dictator, and it's clear now that they want that. They're trying to throw out the results.
But you're saying that they didn't go far enough. I don't think they would have. They wanted to go far. I don't think they believe in a dictatorship. I really don't. Like John McCain.
No, I'm saying those, yes, Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush, John McCain, George W. Bush, they wouldn't go far enough. They couldn't do that. That's why John McCain voted against a few things that Trump wanted to do and judges. But the people, I'm saying the conservative base can't get enough of the cruelty.
Exactly.
It wasn't far enough. He could have done, he could have fucked your wife and it would have been like, it's okay.
Okay. But then there's this other part 3, I think, or 4, 3 or 4.
I think we're on 3, yeah.
That those lines, those people standing on those lines, those people saying, my vote matters, my voice counts, the fact that so many people voted, that so many people were not going to let anything disenfranchise them. And that to me is just the beauty of, because, you looked at those lines, those were not Republicans standing on line.
Well, it might have been. But
yeah.
And it's interesting if it was, because then if it was, their vote mattered so much to them and they don't care if Donald Trump throws it out. Like, do you believe in democracy or not? Like, y'all voted, a record number of you voted for Trump. It's just that more people voted for Joe Biden. But he wants to throw out, do you believe in voting or not? Should we have a system of democracy the way we do? Or should we have an authoritarian leader who makes all the decisions?
And also the news. I mean, come on. I was talking to a friend of mine who said, he had friends in Texas. They don't get the same news as us. That when they watch the local news,
right.
They weren't talking about all the shitty things that Trump was doing. They were believing these conspiracy theories. And the fact that Fox News is an entertainment network, it's not a news network.
But again, to my earlier point, they didn't go far enough, Judy. They've thrown them out in the last few weeks. Trump has gone out. Right. Randy Quaid has decided.
Oh my God. I had to watch that twice because the part where he goes, I mean, what the fuck is wrong with him?
I like how they're like, oh, what happened? He's the bad Quaid. I'm like, have you met Dennis? Not the greatest guy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, say anything about it, but it's like the rest of the family. No, I think you're making really great points and you're seeing the silver lining. And I like what I'm hearing. I mean, but do you have compassion for, and would you reach out to the Trump supporter and say, listen, can we figure out a way to move ahead?
I was thinking about this yesterday.
Because
I thought about all the people I unfollowed or I won't talk to. I need more time. Sorry. I can't. The fact that you were okay with that tells me so much about you that I need more time. Sorry.
I talked to a Trump supporter the other night, a guy I just met on Twitter, for like an hour and a half. We had the most pleasant conversation until we turned to politics. But we were talking about marriage and raising kids in our childhoods. And it's great. And we talked to turn to politics, and it starts to fall apart. So the lesson was there's ways to communicate and have conversations and have relationships with people in your life, especially if you have to because you live near them or you work with them.
The problem is that for me, these things are really important to me. So that's why it's hard for me to disregard. Oh, we don't have to talk about that because they affect me where I live. They fucking affect me. If you're okay with a racist, like that was one of the things. He is so obvious. You're okay with blatant racism and blatant misogyny and the Supreme Court. The fucking hypocrisy with that Amy Cunty Barrett. Like, no, that is not okay. The Supreme Court should be 3 progressives, 3 conservatives, and 3 centrists. That's what it should be.
Do you think they should have lifetime tenure?
Not really. Do you?
No. Listen, I don't think old people should be in charge of anything. Almost anything. I think they should retire and get their feet rubbed by the rest of us. Right. But they shouldn't be in charge of anything, especially when the main threat is climate change. They're going to be dead. Let young people decide their future on the economy.
I agree.
And so, I don't care if you're a senator or a president. I thought it was outrageous that it was Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders to choose from.
Right.
When you could have had Elizabeth Warren, who's not that much younger, but still.
Right. But now we have,
I mean, Barack Obama was, and George W. Bush and Bill Clinton were all in their, 50s? Right. So, and but you have Kamala.
Barry was in his 40s.
That's right. Was he when he got elected president? Obama?
Yeah, and I think so was Clinton. Wasn't Clinton?
What is your biggest concern going forward?
Oh God. Well, I mean, personally, I'm concerned about how the world's going to change now from this and what my job will look like. But climate change is a big issue for me. Women's health is a really big issue for me. Racism is an issue, but I think we have not dealt with the misogyny in this country. And that I am glad we're dealing with the systemic racism, and I think we also have to deal with the systemic misogyny, because the fact that it's 2021 is when we will have our first female vice president. I mean, come on,
I feel like I wanted to ask you about that, and I feel like racism is easier to kind of understand and wrap your head around, and there's a lot of history there, and then even to make policy. Whereas I feel like misogyny and gender equity and whatever toxic masculinity is deeper in terms of people don't even realize what it is, and some of it is more innocent and ignorant. And I wonder, let me just ask you point blank, what do you think about the fact that the vast majority of white women specifically voted for a rapist? And I told my daughters the night of 2016 election, they were going to witness the election of a first woman, and they didn't trust me for the next 4 years. And what they got instead of the first woman was the worst man anyone could imagine towards women, who appointed tons of men who abused women. And
it just shows it shows.
So how do women vote for that? What about the women who vote for that? How do you deal with them? How do you comprehend and understand that? Do you know
I don't understand it. I do understand that maybe, look, in the gay community, there were when what was it? Domestic partnerships passed, and people were like, okay, that's fine. All right. What do we have to get married for? And I was like, because we're not equal. We don't get we get nothing with this. We don't get to file tax returns. You can't be buried in the same cemetery if you're a military person. Like all these there were like 1,100, almost 1,200 benefits that we didn't get from the federal government, including the federal inheritance tax, which was the issue that was brought in front of the Supreme Court. But anyway, those people who were like, all right, it's fine.
In the gay community.
In the gay community. That I didn't understand. And it's the same with these women. Oh, that's the way men are. All right, well, we're women. No, I don't know.
Is there a difference? I never have thought about this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it, and it might sound a little bit arrogant or offensive to some people, but do gay women have a better understanding of sexism and misogyny than women in general?
No, I think that, look,
are you more focused on the discrimination because you're a woman with another woman?
I don't think it's that. I think it's that we don't see you as a sex object. And
gay women don't see men as a sex object, and
so the power that the men have by, their masculinity and their sexuality, which most men do, are like, hey, sweetie, blah, blah, blah. We know that's not right. We're not going to, but there's also, it's one thing to be a woman in this world. I think we're more attuned to the behavior of men and how they treat women. Or manipulate women. But I think women do the same thing, the women who enjoy the little flirt man and, it won't hurt, but this is what I don't get. There's a comic we both know who was getting on stage during the Me Too, when it was like the height of the Me Too, and saying, I was in an elevator the other day, and this girl walked in, very attractive, and she said, good morning. And I was like, I'm not going to fall for that. And to me, and people, the audience is like, because he started with the Me Too, you can't say anything, And the fact that you don't know how to have a conversation with a woman, like that's what I don't understand. Like, so you're a guy, and it's so hard for you to work with a woman without being able to say nice ass, nice tits, fuck you, come get me. That is the problem right there.
Or I think it's more, that they're worried that they're going to say the wrong thing and that the woman is going to be offended. And I'm not worried about that because I just treat them exactly. I don't.
They're not
especially
worried
at
about
work.
that. If they are worried about that,
Yeah.
That is because they don't treat women equally.
Right,
that
right.
Is the
Better said.
only
Yeah,
reason why they would be.
Yeah.
Anyone who's
they don't
worried
see
about
them as equal. They don't. Not only
Right.
they don't treat them as
I
equal because
can't-
they don't see them as equal.
But it's also I can't be myself around. Why? Why?
Right.
Because yourself is a fucking misogynist. Yourself sees a woman and objectifies her. That's it. You know. That's why.
Yeah.
You can't be yourself because yourself is lacking. You fuck.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it then.
Hey now.
Yes, I can say that. When they come for the comedians, we are all in trouble.
The audiobook was in the New York Times Book Review, by the way. It's
I
very
heard
good.
people talking about how good the audiobook was. Was that fun to tape?
It was,
Or was
although
it agonizing?
during the pandemic and everyone was in another fucking space, so it was all done via, headphones and shit. But
I should have bought that.
yeah, it was because I do the essence of like when I do their material, I kind of try to get the essence of them.
I am sorry it's been so long since we talked. Can we do it again really soon? Because I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I want to
Judy.
come over there and give your fucking neighbor the finger.
Done.
Okay.
Bring more than just your hands.
I'll wear a tallis and a yarmulke.
Yeah, you know what? Here's what we'll do. We'll just put a for sale sign out in front of my house, and you'll dress as an Orthodox Jew and just keep coming every day and looking at the house like you're going to buy it. That will be
Okay.
more upsetting
Oh my
than
God, I
anything
love that.
to them. All right, Judy Gold, thank you very much. I love you.
I love you.
right.
So long.
Judy Gold. I just love the way that ended. So great. I really hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I was very enlightened and interested to hear her take, her opinion on everything. And that was just so good. Let me know if you enjoyed that one. It would mean a lot to me if you reached out. Email me or hit me up any way you want. And I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I'm going to take a couple days off here at the end of the week. Haven't done that in a really long time. May post something, may not. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back here in the shed and post something. But I'm going to try to get outside, relax. I hope that you will do the same and be safe and stay connected and check in with us on the Discord platform. If you're a subscriber, if you're not a subscriber, sign up right now. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, and I will see you when I see you. Love you. Bye.